Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 49th edition of Trending Tuesday.
49.
It is hard to believe that it's been 49. 49. I am with Danette K. Davis, the visionary, the CEO of K. Davis in the community. And she has birthed this vision of Trending Tuesdays. Why? To make sure that the community is informed, well informed, I should say. And once they're informed, then you can be inspired to go out and be the difference in the world that we've already seen emulated through others before us.
Right.
And that leads us right into today's show because we're talking about Houston's treasures. That's right, Houston's treasures. And it was birthed in your mind. Tell me, what has it been like, Danette, to have imagined through vision who and what Houston treasures would look like?
Thank you, Tanya, because I met you on that journey, and you've been a steady ever since, and I appreciate you, and I thank you. Your heart is always in the right place. And you know, when I think about it, Dr. James Douglas, to see you sitting over there, my first inspiration, honestly, for a thank you, having in my life, there are folk that affect you and make a difference in your life. You know, we call them difference makers and things like that, but they really do things that take you to the next level. And having met you was that. It was, you know, you were my first inspiration with interviews and wanting to talk to, because, you know, to be honest, it started out just trying to figure out, you know, you didn't hear a lot about Houston history, but things happen. They just happen, right? No, right. They really don't, right? So I'd heard stories about not Douglas, but about Reverend Lawson and being in the room when they decided to integrate Houston.
Yes.
And so
amigos, right?
I just wanted to hear the story because Houston was integrated, and when you would hear them tell the story, they'd say, well, actually the astronaut was coming and the ship channel was coming, and those students at TSU were out there marching, sitting out at that counter. And they were afraid that they was just going to embarrass, you know, and make it harder for us to get those dollars because, you know, Houston is a city of transactions, you know, and it still is, right?
Yes, it is.
And so it was like, you know, we need to just, you know, squash this. So what do we do? And I thought it was so intriguing for their story to talk about being in the room. And he talked about people like Hobby and Mac Hanna and things like that. Yes. So that was, I started with the interviews, and I wanted to talk to Dr. Douglas, who a lot of folk didn't know, you know, that he had been on this committee for law schools and formulas and stuff. He still doesn't talk about that very much, but he's been a guardian angel for TSU's law school since forever. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to hear the story, right?
Yeah.
Still doing it. And then the other person was Miss Provost.
Yeah.
It was, I told her, I said, I thought Provost picture, I thought that was the only folk that made pictures. You know what I'm saying? I grew up, my older brothers and sisters were getting these pictures, graduation pictures, and it was this Provost. That's all I'd ever seen. Little did I know that this man was traveling all over Texas because somebody had to take black folks' pictures when they graduated.
Right.
And he was that guy, right? And Miss Provost was living testimony, and she was just this vibrant, you know, person. So I started out just wanting to interview them. And honestly, there was a lady named Patsy Swayze who had the HSPVA and all of that. I thought I was just doing Houston history. I had some other folk, but when I started doing the interviews, and there was a person named Barbara Marshall, who I wanted to interview, and she says, oh, when she saw Dr. Douglas and some of the others, she says, oh, I'm not supposed to be with those dignitaries. Are you serious? She wouldn't do it. And so, but as I talked to them, all roads led to Texas Southern.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, really? And that's kind of where it started. It was like, these are Houston treasures, but they somehow became guardians and warriors for Texas Southern University. And I think that he's putting that statue that's on stage there, that's Chaka Zulu, and that's that shield Dr. Douglas, to Scott, Reverend Lawson, and Georgia Provost, and Dr. Douglas on that shield. And those are pictures from that day when TSU honored us and
Yes.
gave us a reception, and we offered the endowment and all of that back in 2018. And a lot of people didn't know about it, Karen, and the only press that was there was Karen. And I don't know if she was on the gag order because she's Ms. Provost's goddaughter. And that was why she was there, because we had wanted to, that's the picture that day from when we were there. We wanted to show the videos to the families and friends first and then go to press. Little did I know that things happen and everything in life is a window closing. And I don't want to go any further without us, everybody knowing and stuff, because Houston treasures are national treasures, and
Yes.
it needs to be shared. And I think we want to we've got the momentum now where we can make sure that happens. So that's really the story of how it started. But gee, the folk that jumped on board and the people I met along the way, that stood up for Reverend Lawson, Marcus Cosby, and Dr. Douglas, all the board members that participated and gave us word for Ms. Provost, Alan Huffman.
Yes.
That story brought me to tears, honestly, to know somebody could be that dedicated and that honest about giving and friendship. So, and Karen, going every year, Ms. Provost, we stand up there at the annual holiday party, taking that money at the door for a nonprofit with Forward Times and with that family. So that's how it started.
Yeah. So, everything starts in a thought in the mind. So you imagine, and there are times throughout the journey that you have to reimagine what's going on, because as you said, things change.
Right.
And that's one good thing about life and the happenings of life, is that it does not stay the same. And you have the power within you to really kind of project what direction the change is going to go in. With Houston Treasures, you honored 3 Houston treasures that we share with the world. So their touch, their impact does not just reach Third Ward TSU.
Oh, no.
Does not just reach the city of Houston, although we're one of the largest cities in the nation. Does not, but it spreads beyond and throughout the nation. When you go places, you can speak of these names, and people will know who you're speaking of.
Exactly.
Because their name, their work precedes the name.
Exactly.
And so I did not know who Dr. Douglas was by name, but I heard about this man over at TSU. Right. And then I was honored to be able to go and meet him and interview him. And so thank you for the honor that I had in supporting in writing the documentary for the Houston Treasures, as well as interviewing the treasures that we honored. Those of you who are online, I want you to go ahead, first of all, and to put in the chat Houston's treasures.
Exactly.
They're all over town. We just highlighted a few of them, and you spoke of some others. But there are treasures that who are in Houston that we want to salute. So go ahead and drop their names in the chat, and then type Reimagined.
Absolutely.
What does it look like now? Because warriors, they get old.
Right.
In age.
Right.
Their bodies begin to wear from being in the fight. And the people that we're talking about have been in the fight for decades.
And
probably
still.
almost all of my life.
Right.
Time, actually, right? Yes. But the thing about it is, at some point, there has to be a reimagining of what that front line looks like.
Right. The other thing, and I want Avery to play the tape so we can get a gist of it real quickly, but this in imagining, it wasn't just these 3 people. There are 4 shields, and this whole installation, which working with Albia Wardlaw to go and at TSU, the other shields the political shields. Two of them are already gone, and that's Sheila
Yes.
and
Sylvester.
Sylvester.
Yes.
But we have others that are still on that path fighting every day, and we have others that are coming. So we'll get through, if you'll run the tape, and then we got folk at the table that are going to talk about that fight forward, because we're not done.
Right.
We're not done at all.
Fight is not over.
So, but we did want to just kind of give you a little history so you can understand that the concept is honoring. We need to remember. I'm concerned that we don't remember, so we repeat.
Yes.
You ready, Avery? Okay.
When I came to Houston invited by segregationists, by strong segregationists. I was brought here by the Baptist General Convention of Texas, Southern Baptists, and you couldn't find anybody any more racist than Southern Baptists in the 1950s.
Remember the first strike we had at TSU. I led the first strike at TSU. And it was really funny. I was walking out of the student center one day. We used to have a little coffee shop in the student center. And I was walking out of the student center. We came back in the fall and the prices from the coffee shop were sky high.
I went to Charles R. Drew High School. My father worked at Umberlawn, and he had mechanic shop, nightclub. We raised all our vegetables. Anything you want to eat, we raised it. We raised chickens and cows and pigs. And Daddy always said he had those businesses because he didn't want us to work for the Blue Eyes.
Wow. Wow.
That was just a snippet and an advertisement that we put together. I think the actual tape is probably 40 minutes. It's a short doc, and there's interviews from the three of them, and they tell you all kinds of stuff. And we want to make that available. We'll do that separately, so you can just sit and watch. Maybe we'll put some popcorn, something, so you guys can really enjoy that in its entirety, because it's educational and it's worth it. So Avery, there's one, we're here tonight though. We want to talk about Houston Treasures. We are, and we have, but we're here tonight because we've lost one of our warriors. We lost Miss Provost. You know, I know we're all aging, we all are, but somehow, it's still, it floored me anyway. I'm just.
Well, we always know that there is a death date,
Of course.
but we're never prepared and ready to accept that date.
Yeah. Well, we
because you're always looking forward to the next moment with those people that you love. Like I love running into Miss Provost, whether it was on the campus of Texas Southern or out in the community. That smile was going to be the same. She was always going to have a word of encouragement and instruction. She loved for you to look like a lady, act like a lady, be a lady. Yeah, you're shaking your head, nodding your head. So you got those touches and special servants as well, right? And that was Miss Provost. She was a queen to us. We were able to look at someone to see what a real lady looked like. That's why she's a treasure. She left us with nuggets to help us to live better and to achieve better as well. When you look at her being the wife of Mr. Provost, who had the business first, the photographer business. She helped to grow the business. She established a name for herself. I mean, I thought she was like the president of Texas Southern at one while. You know, she walked around the campus like she owned the campus. Did anybody else experience that? Yes, you
My
know.
TSU.
Yeah, huh?
My TSU.
My TSU. And then to see her walking, you know, you saw her face, the beautiful smile coming towards you. But when you were walking behind her, you knew who she was representing because that pen was going to be on her back of her
She wrote the
shoulder
TSU
back there.
pen.
That text, yes, on her back.
On the back. I tell she and Douglas both. I said, Dr. Douglas, that's you the only person I know that TSU tags still on your car. You know, before president and after presidency, he's still TS representing TSU, just like Georgia wore that pen backwards. So you go on a coming, you saw TSU.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Dr. Douglas. He's in the studio today, and his maroon and gray,
Right.
those TSU colors, what have you. So I think we have time because I want to get on to our guest. Yeah, I think we have one more presentation. This is just about Ms. Provost, and then Tanya's going to talk to our guest. We have wonderful guests for you tonight.
Yeah.
Who are the epitome and will share not only their thoughts about treasures, but they will also talk about themselves because they're still doing it.
Yes.
They're still doing it. Okay.
Georgia Provost is a person who has hit the bullseye. This woman began preparation in her earlier years, learning lifelong lessons from the first man in her life, her father, who began training her how to be a woman, thrashing the rules of superiority of the male counterpart, and racism by standing up and speaking up for what she believes in her heart. It's no doubt Miss Provost knows she's in the right place at the right time, living out her designated calling. Mrs. Provost, an accomplished fashion model, could have thrived for a comfortable life seeking attention for herself. But her life personifies the quote of Yasmin Mogahed. My value as a woman is not measured by the size of my wallet or the number of men who like me. My worth as a human being is measured on a higher scale, a scale of righteousness and pity. And my purpose in life, despite what the fashion magazine says, is something more sublime than just looking good for men. Georgia's testament is, may the work that I've done speak for me.
I went to Charles R. Drew High School. My father worked at Umberlaw, and he had mechanic shop, nightclub. We raised all our vegetables. Anything you want to eat, we raised it. We raised chickens and cows and pigs. And Daddy always said he had those businesses because he didn't want us to work for the Blue Eyes, like he had to work for them. But my daddy had a lot of vision. I can remember I was about 15 years old. He came home and he said, tomorrow I'm gonna leave the truck for you to go to Baytown so you can talk to the president of the company they work, finery they work for. And I said, what I'm gonna talk to him about? He said, they're building a clubhouse for the white employees' children, and you wanna know where's the clubhouse for the black employees' children.
Wow, that was Miss Georgia Provost. Yes, we honor the life of Miss Provost, as well as honor the lives of those who are at the table having conversation with us this evening. We're going to start over to the stage with Dr. James Douglas. We must start with him. Dr. Douglas, you have been on the campus of Texas Southern impacting the lives of students and even the trajectory of the school for how many decades now? I didn't say years. I got you, didn't I? You were waiting on me to say years.
I would say probably about 30. No, probably. I think 4
decades.
4 decades impacting the life. But I was there for about 20
Being
20
impacted.
years being impacted.
Being impacted, yes. So what does it feel like to go back to the institution that helped to shape and mold your life, and then you in turn do that for incoming students for over 40 years?
You know, something strange happened when I was a student that impacted my life. When I was a junior, there was a lady by the name of Mabel Lott. Dr. Lott was Dean of Women. We had a Dean of Women back then. And she had a seminar called Leadership Training. And she selected the students for that seminar. I happened to be in the first seminar. So it was 20 of us. And she said, look, we all know each other. But what I want to do first is I want to go around the room. I want you to give a more detailed history of who you are, but more importantly, what led you to TSU. That experience changed my life. At the end of the conversation, I sat there because I realized, and I said to myself, these are the top 20 student leaders at TSU, but only one wanted to come to TSU. The other 19 wanted to be someplace else, but they were not, either because they didn't have the money or they didn't have the grades. So I would say I made a commitment to myself that I would spend the rest of my life making TSU great. Now, I didn't intend to become a university professor. My goal was to go out and be a litigator, this great lawyer, and use my money to have TSU. But that's another story in itself because I got diverted and ended up back at TSU. But from my junior year, I made that commitment to myself. And at one point in my life, even before I came back, I can tell you, I tried to say, you know, you need to go do something else with your life, but I can't.
But your life's calling was TSU.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the service that you've done at TSU. It is well noted. And then we have next to you, Miss Karen. Hello, Miss Karen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Karen Carter Richards.
That's it.
I say it all.
I use it all.
Yes, yes. And you are with one of the longest Black-owned newspapers. I knew about the Forward Times when I was a child. So how does it feel? I'm sure it was likewise for you, right?
well.
But now you're the CEO. What does that mean to you to have been able to take the reign of leadership at the oldest newspaper here, Black-owned newspaper here in Houston?
It means a lot to me. Knowing that my father started this business in 1960, he died in 1971, and the fact that we're still here, he's been on over 50 years, is just a blessing. He started the paper at his garage, and the fact to see, me, my mother, and then now me, and my daughter's coming behind me as a third generation is just amazing. And I love it. It's nothing like it.
Yes, well, thank you for carrying on the family legacy. I remember in the churches, in my grandfather's family owned funeral home, Carl Barnes Funeral Home. We gave, the families coming in got a forward time. Everybody, it was like on Oprah. You get a forward time, you get a forward time, everybody get a forward time.
Exactly.
Yes, it was almost like the church fans that everybody got. You got that at a forward time. That's right. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to hearing more from you with what you're doing with the communication to the public and the integrity of
Right.
what you actually release to the public, because we know that what shapes the culture a lot is what media puts out, right?
Exactly.
So we want to talk a little bit more about that
Okay.
with you as well. And then we have right next to me, the infamous Richard. Richard, I've always thought you were like one of the NBA players or something, because you were also always so tall when I would see you in the community and everything. But you are tall in stature and what you do in leadership in the community. You're there and talking about discussing the big topics. I call them the big topics because those are topics that other people don't really talk about. Some people have small conversations, right? But I don't hear you in the small conversations. Your name doesn't come up in the small conversations. So we welcome you. Yeah, so we welcome you to Trending Tuesdays. And let's tell the world who you are and a little bit about you.
Okay, great. I earned my bachelor's degree in history and government from Wiley College, and my master's in clinical psychology from Texas Southern University, and my doctorate in education from Texas Southern University. And I'm currently the second vice chairman of the Board of Regents at Texas Southern University. And I'm also the director of the Booker T. Washington Initiative for Texas Public Policy Foundation in Austin and in DC.
I told you all his name does not come up in small little conversations, right? So do you all believe me now? Yes, let's applaud and thank Mr. Richard Johnson for being with us on this evening. We're talking about Houston's treasures. And oftentimes when you talk about treasures, you're talking, you think automatically about something that's ancient, valuable, but ancient. And the value does not diminish with time. It actually increases over time. And so with the Houston treasures, I'm sure you all's life have been touched by each of them as well. What do you think about the treasures that we've honored, as you've seen on the screens with Dr. Douglas, Reverend Lawson, and Miss Provost? We have those treasures, but how do you see their lives and what they've done impacting where we are today? And how do we continue moving forward, progressing? Because I think that's what people want to know, is how do we progress when so many things are seemingly set forth for us to digress?
Well, I'll dive right in because I came back to Houston. I'm a native Houstonian, but I came back to Houston from the United States Army in 1988. So I went high school to college, then to the military, and came back home. And I've always been interested, in the struggle for freedom, justice, equality, independence for Black people. And when I came back to Houston, of course, the first thing I did was I enrolled at Texas Southern University, and there was this big pitch to try that the state's going to take over TSU. State's going to take over, and students were all down with hold up, we're going to fight the good fight, and that's when I was introduced to Georgia Provost, and that's about 32, 33 years ago. And along with Doris Jackson, and I think you were the president. You were the president, and so we came up with this movement. So we have to have a movement, and we would meet over at Georgia Provost's house in the studio, and that's when we did our strategizing. And of course, Dr. Jackson, Doris Jackson would say, okay, it's going to cost us some money, so we're going to put up some money. And we brought the students in, and we started fighting the fight then. And one of the things that I've known, and I talked to Georgia right before she went into the hospital, and it was all still about the struggle. Everything, she was constantly in fight mode for TSU. And that was most of our time. And we would meet with Reverend Lawson, Dr. Douglas, and Howard Jefferson, who was over NAACP, Al Green before he was in Congress. And these guys were strategizing. To me, just a young guy coming from the military in my graduate program, I was just glad to be around them and learn from them and be a part of it. So wherever they said, look, we want you to stand up and read this, or we want you to go here, I would do those things simply because I saw them as the elders in the struggle. And they still are, even though many of them have gone on. But they still are elders in the struggle, and it's invaluable. And I'm in the struggle right now, even though I'm on the board of regents at Texas Southern University. I'm still like that guy who was out there with my fellow students marching and throwing up signs.
Yeah, I mean, you just said something very, very important, and that was that you respected, you honored the elders.
It was a
who were
blessing for
in
me to
the
be
fight.
to
And
be
you
around
were-
them.
Yes, and
Yeah.
exactly. And that's one thing that I would love to see more happening with our younger generation, really latching on to the elders, being in the room with them, the wisdom that you gain, the directions they've learned through
In the spirit.
experience, right?
In the spirit, they
And-
cord
and
the
yes,
spirit.
that
fighting.
spirit, the spirit to fight.
Yes.
Exactly.
The spirit to fight. So I know you're not a weak person because of who you've been in the room with. You can
I
tell.
still hang around it.
Yeah, I understand. And so I would encourage you, if you're a younger person, if everyone that's in your circle is around your age, then you're missing out on a lot of life. And a lot of life that you don't want to continue missing out on. You got to connect with an elder. God left them here so that they can actually touch your life, impact your life, guide your life so that you can soar higher. They're not here to, shut you out. They're just here to kind of lead you into the door, lead you up the elevator, off the elevator, so that your plateau can be here and not here. Karen, you're coming on because you're carrying on the family legacy. So you know what it's like, I'm sure, to learn
Yes,
from the
indeed.
treasures of our elders.
Indeed, I agree with what you said. As a young girl, I was in the room Forward Times was, founded in 1960. So all those civil rights meetings were Forward Times. And to me, a little girl, I was just hopping around on everybody's lap. And as I got a little older, we'd be at school and they'd be talking about some of these people. And I'd be like, oh, that's Uncle so, because everybody was
Right, it
Uncle.
was your uncle.
Yeah, or this and that. But to watch those meetings were, like I say, held at Forward Times. And to watch, like you said, being in the midst of that and hearing it, and you hearing it, but you don't think you're paying attention. But I think that's where we got.
Okay.
But to
Hello,
be in the
goodbye.
midst,
Okay, go ahead.
but to be
Karen.
in the midst of that and grow up in that, I think that's where we develop our fight.
Yeah.
Georgia, I call her Aunt Georgia because my mother's best friend. To watch two women as powerful as they were, what they were doing at that time, both of them married older men and were young women, and their husbands groomed them for the fight. And to watch to sit under the feet, I always say, of Darling, Georgia, was amazing. They backed down to no one. They didn't care who you were. They stood toe to toe with you. And it was something just to be in the room and know how to handle that and to see the way they just handled their business and carried the fight on.
Right. And you said you were groomed for it. That's another word. I would like for you all to put that word in the chat. Groomed. Because oftentimes when we hear the word groomed, we think of it in a negative way, right? Because people have used it in that way. But we were the people who grew up like we grew up we were groomed to be who we were. I served because everyone in my family served the community.
Right.
My grandfather did not barbecue just for the family. He barbecued for the community,
Exactly.
right? Everybody got the food. They didn't have to ask for it. You just knew that they needed another meal on the table. So the barbecue came out, the fried fish came out,
Exactly.
whatever it was, and it was shared with everyone. We're groomed if we stay close.
Could be grown, just like you said. Georgia would tell you about yourself because she wanted you to be. She was tough now, but she wanted you to be a lady. And so when you said being groomed, I remember, and she didn't care how old you were.
No.
She didn't care. I remember we were at an event, and I was getting ready to go up on the stage, and somebody handed me some water because they know I had to speak, and they handed me a bottle of water, and she was standing there, and I got ready to take a sip, and she grabbed my arm. She said, "You better not put that bottle up to your mouth." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." But I'm saying some people would get offended, but we knew that Georgia would do those things because she wanted us to look a certain way and represent a certain way.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
we were groomed.
We were groomed. I'm glad I was groomed.
Me
Are
too.
you glad you're groomed? Have y'all been groomed? Yes. Y'all can talk to us.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. Yes. And Dr. Douglas, with you've sat at the seat with these treasures that we've been speaking of today.
Well, now I didn't always sit at the seat.
You didn't always sit at the seat. Well, you've been at the seat since I've known, and I'm 62 years old. So you've been at the seat a long time.
When I arrived at Texas Southern University, I sat at the feet of Reverend Lawson.
There you go. So was that during the boycott?
No, that was after the
boycott.
boycott, but Reverend Lawson really led the fight to integrate HISD.
Yes.
And so I was a part of his little team. So I learned a lot from him and trying to fight the battle against HISD. I also met Herbert Provost. He was, at the time, he was coach of the tennis team. And even though I didn't play tennis, he let me practice with the team because one of my roommates was on the team. I didn't meet Georgia, really get to know Georgia until I came back to TSU as an administrator. And there was two people, even after I left the presidency, who thought I should be responsible for everything that happened at TSU. And that was Gaston Leland, Mickey Leland's brother, and George. And I would remind him, I'm no longer the president. No, but you're responsible for everything that happened at TSU. But yeah, so Georgia was, and she would, even when I was president, she would get angry with me because I didn't do something she thought I should have done. She would always say, "You better be glad Herbert loved you."
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What do you all think about whose lives we have been impacted by? They've gotten us to this point because they've stayed in the fight. Now it's time for others to join the fight. A new generation to join the fight. They won't always be the frontline warriors, but you got to get in the war. How is it, or how do you imagine now recruiting, as every army would do, new soldiers to be in this war?
I don't think you can recruit real soldiers.
Are they born? How do they, where do we get them from?
Well,
Explain.
they recruit themselves.
Okay.
I mean, the real soldiers are the ones who want to be in the fight.
Exactly.
And so you don't have to recruit. Now, they may need some direction and some help, but you have to want to do this. And so there are a lot of people out there that want to do it, but they are looking for leadership.
Exactly.
And so I think what we have to do is try to inform and educate the next generation so that they really understand what the fight is all about. Because a lot of times people are sitting on the sideline because they really don't know what the fight is about. So we've got to inform this next generation of what this real fight is about. Remember, well, maybe you all are younger, but they didn't grow up in the environment that I grew up in. And so they grew up in a different environment. And so they don't have the same understanding about this country and the relationship that African Americans have with other members of society. And so we have to educate them.
So
That's critical, though.
That's
That's a critical point. Inform and educate, because fighters will rise up wherever there's a vacuum. Fighters are going to rise up. Now, what we're going to have to do is make sure that they're informed and educated, and know how to fight, who to fight, when to fight, those kinds of things, because that's going to happen. That just, if you leave a group of students alone, before you know it, they're going to be marching about something, and they're going to protest about something. You have to be back, and that's what Dr. Douglas and Reverend Lawson and George and them did. They did a lot of informing. When I was coming up as a student at TSU, they did a lot of informing and educating, and I got a chance to see strategy go on. But I had been in the military also, so I understood strategy. But when I came back home and saw the movement really on the streets of Houston and what was happening behind the scenes and how they were planning and strategizing, and then going forward, then I could adapt my passion and attach that passion to that, because I had the passion all along, but they took the time to mentor, and it wasn't just me, it was me and others, mentor us in terms of how to fight, when to fight, and what to do in the struggle to move forward. And so that's what we have to do now, because the young folk, they got that energy.
Yes.
They gonna squabble. We just got to get them, show them how and when and who you're supposed to be fighting, not each other. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to be pointing at it that way.
Right.
And see, one of the things that people don't really understand is most major revolutions are led by young people. That they're not led by old people. But there's a reason for that. Remember, I told you I was sitting at the foot of Reverend Lawson. Well, when Reverend Lawson was ready to picket, he would come to TSU. All right, and I tell people this every day. He would come to TSU. He didn't go to Humble All. He didn't go to the steel mill. He didn't go anywhere.
Right.
All right, because adults have jobs and families and
cares of the world. Young boys don't have those cares.
They're much more free.
So I understood if my father got arrested, he lost a job. We were in trouble.
Everybody in the house.
But if I got arrested, I just missed a couple of classes.
And they come bail you out.
Yeah, you weren't gonna lose the house.
So Reverend Lawson always came to TSU to recruit us to go picket, and then later, once U of H integrated, he would get some students from U of H. But students are really in the position to really make a difference.
And right now, I know there's been talk about, with the elections coming up, the importance for the younger generations to really get out and get engaged in this particular segment of life. We always say your vote is your voice, right? They have plenty to say, plenty of things that they desire to see happening. But of course, the vote is a pathway to get to what many are saying that they're desiring. How do we translate the information in their language, Karen? Because sometimes, you can hear the message from your parents,
Right.
but it resonates a little bit differently when you hear it from someone else.
Well, I think it's real important. Like they both said, we have to include them. A lot of times, people get in positions for a long time and they don't include them. We intern a lot of young people at Forward Times, and they just don't know. But once they learn, they are so eager to look at our history and to see, like some of the stories you were talking about with HISD, and we covered all of that, and so our archives are there. And I have that image of Reverend Lawson standing on the steps, protested. If we don't teach them that and let them get in there and learn, but I think it should be that we should still be there, but to guide them. But sometimes we just got to step back a little bit, put them in the fight. They gonna make mistakes, but we're here to say, go that way, go that way. But that's real important. We have to include them, and a lot of times we don't.
Education is, you have to educate them
Very much so.
and because they're going to get in the fight. And civics, civics and civic engagement and civics education is important. Back in the 60s, I grew up in the 60s, we knew a lot about civics. We were engaged. I grew up in Pleasantville in precinct 259. Our whole precinct, we 100% voting, everybody. Because we got engaged at 8 years old, out working at the polls, understanding the issues, knowing who the elected officials were. Judson Robinson, the first African American city council member, came out of our neighborhood. So we knew those things growing up. But one of the things, our education has gotten away from teaching civics, and we've gotten away from civic engagement, and that's the reason why the voter turnout is so low. We need to re-engage that, reinvigorate that, and now that we can open up our own schools and do that and teach that, we need to do it.
Now, you said we can open up our own schools and teach that, because we know that if you have your own, you have the power to do with it what you like to do with it.
Right.
I love that fact when we had our school open, because I was not under the governorship of what HISD said children should learn. Exactly. So my 2 and 3 year olds were already reading fluently.
Right.
I can teach them mathematics, adding and subtracting at 4 and 5 years old. I can teach in cursive writing at 3 and 4 years old. After they get mastered that manuscript, why keep working on manuscript?
Right.
Let's go to the next level. I can teach them about the history of our people and others, because we want to make sure that you love and respect other people as well, right? And so having our own, which leads me to, you have been a part of the conversation and decision making and given some leadership with the voucher system. We have voucher system. The vouchers are here.
TIFA, right? Yeah, Texas
and they
Education.
call them different.
Yeah.
Say what it calls, because my thing was voucher.
Yes, the Texas Education Freedom Accounts.
Yes.
And where the dollars follow the child, and the parents have the choice to make those decisions on where they want their children to be educated. We were very instrumental in being able to bring that forward into fruition and get the bill passed, simply because, if you look at the state of Texas, 42% is Hispanic, 40, a little over 40% is Anglo, and then about 12.5% African American. But when you look at the criminal justice system, the African American population, that small group of people was the largest population in the prison system. So, and we understand that reading is important. And where we were missing the boat at is in the public sector was in terms of reading. And so we're pushing forward, and now we have certain churches. I know Church Without Walls has their school going with TIFA funding. I know Good Hope, not far from here, Dr. Cofield, and then the Rock Church, Dr. Carson, and Amani School. Amani kind of is leading the way in the Houston area with the Texas Education Freedom Accounts, and it has no impact. The state's not telling you what to teach. The state's not governing your curriculum, so you can teach your own history. And you can teach a lot about God and Jesus Christ as well, because that is a huge piece of the African American experience that has brought us over the bridge. Without a faith in God, we would not be where we are today. And if you take education back to its foundation, the foundation of education started in the church house. The church house was the church house and the schoolhouse.
Yes.
And so you have to bring that moral quality in with math, reading, and science, but also be able to teach our kids about our history, way beyond, 1964 and 1965. We got a deep history that goes back thousands of years, and we're able to do that, and the dollars follow the children. So that makes it sustainable for the private schools.
Now, you said the dollars follow the children, which leads me, and any of you can jump into this conversation, to the next point. With the dollars following the children, they're not TIFA programs, right? I call them.
Yeah, Texas Education Freedom Accounts. Every parent, yeah.
They're not in all communities or neighborhoods. So what happens to the schools? If I live in a neighborhood and I want to go to Amani School, I live on the north side, and I want to go to Imani, right?
Mm-hmm.
I leave my elementary schools there, my middle schools there, the neighborhood, the high schools there. And I go over here to get educated. The money leaves and goes there. What happens to the schools then in our communities?
Well, hopefully, a couple
that game
things.
plan?
People. There's a reason why a parent would leave the north side and drive to the south side to a school, because that school is offering something that they feel that their child needs.
But see, that's happening now.
Right.
That's happening big time now with the magnet schools and the Vanguard schools and all that. So
within the
money-
system, within the public system. People, they were able to move around within the public system.
Right.
Now they can move outside.
But now everybody can move. Anybody can move outside of the public
which is not a bad
Which is
thing
not-
for African Americans, because see, the challenge for us was the Article 7 of the state constitution says the legislature has a responsibility, has a mandate to provide free and efficient education system for all children in the whole state of Texas. There were just pockets of inefficiency. And those pockets of inefficiency tend to loom over the Black community and the Hispanic community. And so those folks were locked into those areas of inefficiency and not able to move out. And so now they're able to go out and move around the whole state if they want to, and those dollars will follow them. So what happens, and then the state has also increased the amount of funding for public schools by almost 10 billion last session. It'll probably be the same thing this session. And so what the public schools are now doing is recalibrating. They're recalibrating their academic program to be competitive and keep those kids and those families in close.
And that's what I wanted to hear. The fact that we're not going to leave the schools in the neighborhood in a deficit because of funding and budgets, because the money following the kids, but we're going to do something to help strengthen them. So for the kids whose parent can't get them across town to go to another school, they still have the opportunity to have the best education around the corner.
That's key.
As well. And we know that if schools are dilapidated in the community, then people are going to begin to vanish and move out of the communities as well. So, I mean, you have both of those things going.
I think the all of the above approach, and not this versus that, but all options on the table approach is the better option. And the other side of that is there are certain things that students are going to get in a Christian or a religious based academic environment that certain parents want their kids to have that. You're not going to get that necessarily in a big way in the public sector, but with the Bluebonnet curriculum, it's starting to open the door a little bit to talk about, as it explains history, explains locations and places where things happen, and then how the Bible impacted individuals who play a strong role in history. So that curriculum is there, and it's in the public sector now, and it's incentivized through the education system for those districts that choose it. but they can choose not to use the Bluebonnet curriculum. But a lot of them are because they're incentivized to do so. But we, I can tell you, we as Black people, we can't make it without God.
No, we cannot.
That's not in our DNA.
No.
That's not in our DNA. And when you wipe that out, when you wipe that completely out, then we kind of go off the deep end. So I think this is a great opportunity to reel us back in from all the way from pre-K 3 on up, being able to do that and have resources and funding to be able to do it.
Yes, and that's what the voucher, well.
Yeah, Tifa, yeah. Yeah.
And I have my thoughts because I was in the business. So being a private Christian school, for me, yes, just looking at vouchers was, the way we had the private Christian school, but then we also had an HISD charter middle school.
Okay.
Both are good. At the same time.
Right. Yeah.
At that time. But vouchers at that time for middle schools, for HISD or for public schools, was not as beneficial as it was for me being a private Christian school.
Oh yeah, it's no question.
I was here like this with it. And so I've always looked at the pros and cons and the benefits, or how could it best benefit everybody? Right. Because that's why we were in business, in the education business, is because we wanted to educate everyone. So I want to thank you all. Making it sustainable. And of course, making sure that we taught the rich history of our people, and connect that to the rich history of the Bible.
Right.
Because a lot of times
you can do it when you own it.
Those things.
There you go.
Yes, when you own it.
You can do it when you own it.
When you own it. And so let's get more people and more programs or institutions, organizations owning schools so that we can actually educate. We can then, when you talk about the people who you were sitting in the rooms with, they were educating us.
Sure.
As well, we have opportunity to educate them, pour into them, show them, because Bishop Dixon always teaches us that exposure expands expectation.
Yes, it does.
Always.
Yes. Right. And so that's where we want to be. And with that, I want to see, are we ready to go to our next segment? How are you all enjoying this show online and in studio? Is it interesting? Interesting. Wonderful. These are treasures themselves, aren't they? They are dropping a lot of nuggets on us and giving us something to take back with us. I'm going to throw it over to a treasure as well, Ms. Danette K. Davis.
Ooh-wee. All right. Tanya brought it out, didn't she? Ooh-wee. Now, Arnetta, you want to join us at the table? Y'all, we have all kinds of stuff. We have another special guest there that we just saw walk up, who I'm excited, who came to make sure they were here to say their salute to you guys. There's two things I wanted to say, and this is publicly. Richard, D. Morris is a friend of mine.
I mean, D was my soldier.
He shared with me for whatever side that, he says, he was my sergeant. And he was there for us. And it meant a lot to him. And that's something he said, I don't care I'll always, that respect and what he taught me. I just want to share that with you because he didn't say it for me to say it to you. That's just something he told me on the side.
Yeah.
And that said something, what have you, something that a lot of people didn't know. I sit here and Douglas, when Karen, when y'all were talking about they taught us in the room and she told you don't take that bottle up to your mouth in public. If you watch me, it doesn't get cold very often in Houston. But now if y'all want to know, when you see me take that coat off and put it in that back seat and lay it across that back seat before I get in the front seat, who I get that from, Douglas? Okay, when Dr. Douglas was president at TSU, and I was over in the facilities department, and no matter where we were going, to meetings and things like that, first thing he'd do was take that jacket off, lay across that back seat, and of course it had his initials on it. I mean, he's always been that guy, and you learn a lot about etiquette. See, to me, one thing I learned about my history and Black folk in the day, I mean, we knew how to do that, how to do things right. And somewhere along the way, it seems like we don't always, but we have to just continue to teach. But you didn't know that I learned that from you, along with other things that you don't know people are watching. They're watching us, y'all. Okay? And I just wanted to say that. And Karen, I mean, for you, always, I've never met, she is exactly what you see. Beautiful inside and out. And see, she's got a job to do, baby. That Forward Time has been there. And she's got it standing. And she's doing what she says she's doing because she's got a dollar as the editor. See, she's passing it on to the next generation and teaching while she can still teach so that it's done properly. And we thank you and salute you for that. I don't know if they talked about your awards. I told Tanya, did y'all talk about the awards?
Not yet.
Okay, the things that she was coming up. I just told her, all of the accolades that you guys have at the table, what have you. I just want people to know who you are. Because we don't, you'd be surprised. A lot of folk coming into Houston, they don't know who's guarding and making sure that we're all right all the time. We don't get that they're guardians out there doing the warrior work. People like Arnetta. Arnetta, you want to share with us just a few minutes of who you are and all of that? And I do there's some folk that want to ask a couple questions, Richard. We'll bring them up. Where's our special guest?
Where's Rep? Come on, Rep.
Okay, no, you go ahead.
First, good evening, everybody. I am Arnetta Murray. I am the councilwoman in the city of Iowa Colony. If you know anything about Iowa Colony, it's in Brazoria County, and we know how Brazoria County makeup is. And so I was the first Black to stay on council, the first Black that really won. It was such adverse situation that she left, but Karen, I'm a fighter. You know that, Brother Davis, I'm a fighter. Linda, I'm a fighter. I'm also on the executive board of the Houston Federation of Teachers, and I'm an 18 years special ed teacher, currently now in Alvin ISD. I was at Houston ISD. I've been in Fort Bend ISD. So when I say I'm a fighter, I'm a fighter. So when he said those vouchers that piqued my ear, and I got some discrepancies about vouchers. So because I don't mind, having a selective education, even education of choice, but don't take it from the people who has property taxes, have their money. It should be, if you want, private schools, use your money, go to private schools. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with you preaching Christ. I'm the daughter of a Baptist minister. Brother Davis knows that. And so I understand about Christ and all that, but you want to put these commandments in the room, but you don't want to live by the commandments. I got a problem with that. But I believe in Christ, love Christ. I think he is the all in all. But again, don't take away from others to support your view, because we got to be honest, in schools that have vouchers, they can pick and choose who they want. If they don't want a special ed child, they don't have to take a special ed child. So I'm not saying it's negative. What I am saying, look at it from both factors. And let me just speak on Georgia Provost. Something I keep hearing I love about TSU and hearing about TSU, but she was a staunch Rotarian. Herman Park Rotary Club, I was part of that, 2018 through 2020. She worked hard, and I was one of the secretaries there. Did not want to be a secretary, Doc. But this guy, she will say some words to you, and it wouldn't be good, and you would say, yes, ma'am. So that being said, I'm grateful for having to know her. But at the end of the day, and Linda knows this, Lydia knows this, and Jordan knows this, it's about the work. It's not about your name. It's not about your doctoral. It's not about that. What are you doing for the people? Were you out there with Houston Takeover? I was there with HISD Takeover. I was there with the redistricting. I was there with bail reform. See, I'm the kind of elected official that you got to get dirty, get grassroots. It's not just about the galas. Tanya knows this. Tanya Dixon knows this. I learned what I learned from the NAACP under the Reverend Bishop James Dixon. When I didn't want to speak, he made me speak. I just wanted to be in the background and fight. So I'm just here saying we got to continue to fight. Guys, it is at the end of the day, I don't care how you beautify it, we're in the fight for our lives. Whether you have a voucher system, whether you have a public education system, they don't care about that. They are trying to destroy us at the heart of who we are. Now, this is me. I'm from South Park, Walshaw, Sterling. And this is me, Doc, with your beautiful wife, and I see them on Isaiah Carey all the time. Let me say this. I'm just not going to let you just, excuse my language, whip my ass, and I'm just going to take it. So guys, y'all are going to have to fight, doctor, with the regions. We just going to have to fight. That's who we are as African Americans. And we can't be afraid. They are not afraid to do us any kind of way. They wasn't afraid, doc, to take Mike Miles. Let's be honest with the vouchers. Do you understand there are so many special ed teachers that's 50 and over that they decided to let them go and he didn't care? I have an issue with that. And that's why I fight. I fight for the good teachers that are doing their job. I fight not the ones that's cutting up. I'm talking about the good teachers that were doing their job. So when they tell me that public education is bad, no, it's not. Does it have some discrepancies? Yes. But let's be very clear. Private schools do too. They don't have to report. They don't have to report bullying. They don't have to report certain things, but this public schools do. So again, I'm Arnetta Murray. I am born and I am grateful for the rearing of my dad and mother, Reverend James C. Hicks and Arnetta Hicks. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's what we're supposed to do. That's where K. Davis in the community, what have you. So we have both sides, three sides, what have you. We'll let everybody tell the truth, but we know that both of you love the community. I said both of you, I'm talking about you and Rich right now. That both of you love the community. And as always, all those stories, it's almost like at first, they were, they spooked us about them. It came, but while we're in it, Arnetta, we're going to have to figure out how to flush this thing out. God's always in the plan, so it's going to be all right.
Right, absolutely.
But you're supposed to have conversation like you're having, so we can discuss it. And then at the end of the day, it'll be better.
Absolutely.
In the long run.
Absolutely.
All things work together for the good. You got to make it,
right?
You have to make it work for the good. Some things were not your preference, right? But some things, they don't taste good. It didn't taste good. You didn't want to have to digest it, intake it, but you had to do it. And so once you are there and having to do it, you got to see how to make it a good thing.
Absolutely.
A good thing. I believe that we have enough people that are educated, brilliant. We can have a coming together of the minds, because after all, it's about the kids.
Absolutely.
My private school was called All About Kids, and the other one was It's All About Kids. Because that's who it's about at the end of the day. And if we're not ensuring the education and the training and upbringing that children need, then we're going to be a lost nation for real. We have to bring them up with morals. That's one of the things. And the curriculums don't teach morals. The regular curriculum doesn't teach morals, but there's a curriculum that I used to use that taught morals. At the top of their spelling book, the spelling words, there was a quote that helped to direct and teach them morals. There was scripture there in everything that they saw. And so we're going to have to, again, the curriculum that you all use now, it does not have anything like that. But about the schools that have the other system, the funding, they can do it. What do we do to really immerse those together? Because that's going to be the better benefit for all of our children.
Absolutely. But you said something. You said your private school, you didn't use property tax money from the people to pay for those schools. The people paid for those schools themselves. So we don't have a problem. Let's get very clear on this. We don't have a problem with you having the variety of schools. The problem is that the vouchers came because of using other people's money from their property tax to say, this is what we're going to use this money to fund this school. You have private schools already, but this is the good thing. We can agree to disagree and still say the focus are what? The children. And so at the end of the day, I think that's what we have an issue with. The vouchers, you had school choice. Parents could go what they wanted. They were going to private schools anyway. But now you're taking money and saying, well, you're saying the money is following them, but you already had the money. And then, what you're doing over here is closing 12 schools. That you're saying, well, they were, bad. We know you can inflate the numbers to get what you want. So at the end of the day, It is about the kids, but if you're going to make it be about the kids, make sure that you are presenting the data that's right and not making it favorable for who you wanted to go for. And you talking to a teacher, a 19-year teacher, an advocate for teachers, a person that understands special ed and pushing the special ed and saying that there's some discrepancies. So I really agree with you. It's okay. We got to talk about it and find out the common ground and fix that from that angle.
You know, back in the late 80s and early 90s, HSD had a superintendent named Petrozella. And he and I talked. And I told him, you know, it's funny, we teach kids how to read, write, and compute, but we don't teach them how to live. And so we developed a curriculum. It was called character development. Unfortunately, when he left, that curriculum left with it. But it is a problem because we ought to be teaching morals in schools, because that's for the parents, and that probably is true. But when we realize our kids spend more time with their teachers than they do with us, we understand that, yeah, we put a lot of pressure on the schools to do a lot of different things, but we leave our kids at school longer than they're at home with us, because most of the time when they're at home with us, they either playing or they sleep. So
one of the things, you know, policy, you know, and I'm you got to stay rep here. Your policy is policy. When laws are passed, the laws are passed. You can relitigate it if you like to relitigate it, but the law becomes the law. And once the law is in place, then the next thing is implementing that law. And so when you talk about the Texas Education Freedom Accounts, that's the law right now. And so how do we as individuals in the state of Texas participate in a current law? And one of the things that we've been able to do is, again, Imani is the largest African-American private school in the state of Texas. And Imani, my two older kids went to Imani. And at that time, I was struggling to pay for that and pay for my taxes as well. You know, so none of my tax dollars could follow my kids to help me pay to put them in Imani. But they got a quality education at Imani. I struggled with it, worked 2 jobs, but got it done. And so right now, Imani has almost 100 parents that are on TIFA. And those parents were struggling just like I was. But right now, that's a big, huge break for them. And I think that's a great thing. And the churches that I've mentioned to you, you know, Church Without Walls, you got the Rock Church, you got DZ Cofield's church. They're all participating and now educating their own kids and using people within their congregation, because they have teachers too in their congregations. You know, I go to the Rock Church and we have teachers in our congregation. I've been in education for 30 years. My doctorate degree is in education. And so I understand that by taking control of our own education in the Black community and having resources to do that, particularly from a church standpoint, we could not do a lot of things that we do at the private Christian schools in the public schools. But we can offer that now in the churches. And that is a great plus for us to bring the churches into this fight and help fill those gaps of inefficiency and make efficiency happen all across the board for the state of Texas and every kid.
So are we really leveling the playing field? I want to ask that we have we have sitting with you, State Representative Ron Reynolds.
That's right.
Let's give him a hand. And I would love to hear him weigh in on this conversation.
And before you asked that one question, she said, are we leveling the playing field? And we do, Ron. You know, this gentleman, I don't know if I just saw him yesterday or 2 days ago or last week, And I mentioned to him that would he come by? I mean, you talk about somebody for the people. I just can't.
Yes.
To see
Yes.
Ron walk up there,
Yes.
honestly, I'm just saying he's always where you need him to be. So I want to give you that compliment. And then I had, it's so funny as I listened to this thing, money for all of the kids. Because at first I'm like, public schools are, the money, and we don't get any rules to say anything. That was my first thought. And then it was money for all the kids. And this lady I know, she has a daughter. And so she says, I got this thing and I can take the money and put it in the school, where she goes to school, pay her tuition with it. And then, well, I guess, tutoring, I got this tutoring voucher. So, but not that, that was something that she knew what to do with. So I think as I'm listening to your talk, I think I have a question too. And one of them is educating, we need to figure out a way to educate the folk who are getting these vouchers, because they're being, what's the word, when you run after somebody, they're getting letters from people that want them to support the schools they want them to come to, and telling them, come over here, and they don't know what the heck is going on. They don't. They get a voucher and they say they can go to any school they choose. They're not educated about the schools that are available to them. And then they got tutoring, and nobody offers. People are calling me wanting to have tutoring here. I'm just saying, people are getting into tutoring because it's paid by the state. We got a lot of things going on that are kind of weird. So when you talk about information, Richard, as far as information to the community, we did a really poor job of explaining the rollout with this thing. That's the first question, and I'm saying, how do we address that? And the second question is, since I don't have any kids, I have grandkids that may be in the tax, it's like, okay, now I don't have a dog in the hunt if I don't have a kid that I'm putting in school, but my taxes are still going wherever they're going. So the question becomes, do I get a choice in where my tax dollars go now? So y'all got kids, so y'all can decide where y'all tax dollars go. Well, where does my tax dollars go?
Right.
How do I get to decide? Does it go to public school, or is it you? I mean, where does that decision come from? That's really a question, Richard. I'm wondering, because I'd like to decide. I like your money school too. New Bethel has a school too, and I support them. And it's like, do I get to decide where my tax dollars go if I don't have a kid? No, I'm asking a question.
Well,
I'm asking you.
but I think that's a fair question, because, like I shared with you before this policy was in place, I had two children, and my wife decided that they were going to go to private school, and so I had to work two jobs, but I also had to pay taxes and full taxes for public school as well. So I was actually paying for here and for there.
Right.
And so, and right now, I mean, my mom I bought a house in Pleasantville, stays across the street. We pay taxes over there. She don't have no kids in school. My sister stayed with her. She ain't got no kids in school.
Right.
So the deal is, you pay school taxes like you pay property taxes.
Right.
Now, if we pass a law, and I'm glad we have a lawmaker here today, if we pass a law for folks like me that's over 65, where we can get exempt from paying school taxes, kind of like we are for property taxes, then that's a good deal. We look for those kind of cuts. But at the end of the day, there are struggling parents who are living in those areas where we had chronically failing schools, and they could not get out of those zip codes. They struggle to get out of those zip codes, and creating other opportunities for them and other choices for them has really helped. And if you look at the criminal justice system, and you look, because they have to put down what address they lived in before they got arrested and went to prison, we know exactly what zip codes they come from and what schools are in those areas in that zip code. And most of the time it's chronically failing school.
Well, before my question goes back to him, if I received a voucher to be able to take my child to private school, there are different levels of private school. my daughter was being recruited by Kincaid School when she was younger to go there to be scholarship. I couldn't, if they had told me partial scholarship at that time, I would not have been able to afford for her to go to Kincaid. So if I have a voucher, is that going to pay for the entire tuition? Because we're talking about people in these communities that I've been speaking of. Will they be able to utilize those vouchers and take advantage of that? Or then are they then still, as we said, stuck where they are in a school that's not as funded right now to have more access to a better education, or more access to more things to help the educational process for them?
Yeah, if you look at across the state of Texas, it's probably about the average across the state of Texas, not the Kincaids where it's 50, 60,000. The average is about 9 or 10,000.
10,000?
10,000. And if you, my two younger kids, my other two kids went to St. Mary's. And St. Mary's is right here in Third Ward. And at that time, well, even now, St. Mary's was a little under $7,000 a year. And the Texas Education Freedom Account is $10,474. And they could take the other money and apply it toward tutorials or a list of other things that wrap around support services that children need. And so when you ask, can the, to use your term, voucher, to use that term, but can it be utilized to pay for full tuition? If you're sending your kid to St. Mary's, yes. If you're sending your kid to Imani, yes. But if you're sending your kid to St. John's and those are what we call PWIs in the higher ed area, predominantly white institutions. If you want to send your kids there, then that's where you send them. But my kids, all four of my kids went to Black private Christian schools.
Well, if it's that funding source is like the work source, formerly known as NCI, was, you had to charge parents the same amount. If I am in business, not the church, don't say this to the community of faith, but if I am in business, I have a school and I have the opportunity to get $10,000 in tuition versus $7,000 in tuition, do you not think I'm not going to raise my tuition to 10,000 or 13 or whatever that may be? Because I want to max out, right? So I'm concerned that if it's a $10,000, a school that's $7,000, and that parent may be able to just use that and say, okay, I'm good. And I can get them across town or wherever that school may be. But if it exceeds that amount, then I'm still in my same position. I'm going to actually pause and throw it back over to you all, Danette, so that you can throw it to Rep. Reynolds.
Yes, because this go on, right?
Yes.
This is for another whole town hall. And thank you, Richard, for taking it.
Yes,
taking it
he
off.
is helping us.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that is cool. You know,
Yes.
I thought we were going to have
I won't
another
run
subject,
this.
but this is.
It is this was we did talk about George Provost
good.
earlier.
I gotta get a one. First of all, good evening. I'm gonna be quick. I gotta get a word out. Georgia Provost was the truth. I mean, the mayor, honorary mayor of Third Ward, Miss Texas Southern University, Miss everything, pro Tiger, pro Black, pro Forward Times, pro, making sure that people were engaged to go vote. I'm a proud alumnus. I met her many, many moons ago, long before I was a state representative, and I've been a state rep for 16 years. But when I decided to run, she took my photo. She brought me in her studio, didn't charge me because she knew I didn't have much money. She believed in me and wanted to help a young brother out. I will never, ever forget the likes of Georgia Provost. We stand on her shoulders. She was an icon, a living legend when she was alive. So thank you for helping honor her, and all of you for honoring her, because she was truly transformational and a great, great community leader who I loved and cherished. And I don't know many people, who didn't. They were afraid of her. She carried a big stick in Austin, making sure that we had good board of regents, Richard, making sure that TSU had great funding, always pushing the alumni, pushing Alan Helfman and the TSU radiothons, KTSU. I would be up there. She'll be, hey, you got to donate. So anyway, I wanted to start off with that. But when it comes to vouchers, I mean, that was one of the most controversial things that we handled in the legislative session. It was, it's been that way for years. And it wasn't until just, the last session that vouchers actually passed. The reason why I voted no was because our public schools, they can't choose who they accept in terms of students. They have by the Constitution, they have to educate every student regardless of zip code, regardless of education, disability. They have to accommodate them, right? Private schools do not. They can say, they can legally, okay? No, you can't come here, right? No, really. That like there's no ability for you to challenge that, because they have the right to do that as a private school. They can accept the students that they want to accept. And public schools don't have that, right? They have to educate everybody. And when it comes to the public schools, all of our public tax dollars are paying for that. Like you said, you don't get a chance to decide, well, I don't have no kids in school, so I ain't paying this. You can get a homestead exemption, but that's it. So you're educating kids or schools in your area. A lot of times that's going to determine the real estate value, for any realtors. If it's a low performing school, then that decreases the property value. So even if you don't have kids in school, you still want those schools to be strong. Having said that, we see our public schools already being underfunded, right? Texas is low when it comes to the way school, exactly, 49th when it comes to funding per pupil. There's debate 47, 40. It's in the bottom of funding per pupil. So when you look at this further exacerbates the problem because the money follows the kid. Let's say, for instance, the parent gets the voucher. To your point, the school costs $15,000. Let's just say $10,000, $12,000. Well, I'm gonna give you this voucher, but you have to make the difference. What we've seen from the stats is that a lot of the parents that were already sending their kids to school, it's almost like you're giving them an incentive because now they're already sending their kids to school. They're getting the vouchers. The people who couldn't afford to send their kids to private school anyway, they still can't because this $10,400 doesn't cover the extra costs that they have to pay out of pocket. So those parents still technically aren't getting the benefit because they don't have the extra. So a lot of the haves are being able to get an incentive because now I was already paying. Now you're gonna give me $10,000. All I got to do is come up with another 5 or 10 or whatever. You just giving me on your tax dollars an additional tax break. That's what we're seeing. Then the other thing that we've seen is disproportionately Black students. If you get Junebug and Bebe, I'm just being facetious, but they can say you get the voucher, you get accepted. There's a problem. Now you get kicked out of the school. They don't have to accept you back. The money is gone. They keep that. The public school has to take you back, but where's the funding? You see what I'm saying? So that's why it picks winners and losers. And the losers, unfortunately, tend to be the public schools who are already underfunded because now the neighborhood public school has less resources. Then you have larger class sizes, teachers you can't pay. And then little Johnny, who went here for a second, he got kicked out. They kept the money. Now the public school has to take him back. So I think fundamentally it creates problems from our education system. And I think that fundamentally we end up subsidizing wealthy families or upper middle class families, and the poor families are holding the bag because you want your kid really needs that education. They really need it. And they can't, the schools that they may want to go to, they may say, well, he didn't score high enough on this test. He can't come here. Or he has a history of challenges. No, he can't. Disability, most of them aren't equipped to accommodate students with disabilities. Sure. Whereas opposed to public schools have special education, they have to accommodate students with disabilities, dyslexia, English as a second language, you name it. So that is why fundamentally I was against it, and I think it doesn't help predominantly African American and lower income students of color to succeed in our public education system. So that's why, and there's some people who benefit, like Richard's point. There are some situations where you got the Amani and maybe some of the Black Christian academies and whatnot. But overwhelmingly, and if you live in a rural area in Texas, there are generally no private schools there. So those students are really being hurt too, out in rural areas, because they don't even have private schools. So Houston is unique because we have a whole lot of them in other urban areas, but then our neighborhood public schools, we see them really, really getting the brunt of losing that income, and then a lot of times that student has to come back anyway. So that is why I and many of my colleagues, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. It really shouldn't. Education should be nonpartisan, but unfortunately, it was all Republicans voted yes, all Democrats voted no. Now that shouldn't be, but there were a few Republicans that weren't on board, and many of them didn't get a chance to come back because they were primary and they were targeted. But I can just say this: Texas has to do a much better job of educating our students. Right now, it's not, the state of affairs for our public schools are not good. HISD, this takeover, it's terrible. It's not generated positive education outcomes. Texas historically has underperformed when it comes to student readiness for college preparation, even though we have more tests. Because right now we don't give enough resources. That's the problem. There's a lot of things that we're lacking with TEA that needs to be improved. But I don't think this has added any benefit to most citizens in Texas. Now, if I was wealthy, or if I was above middle class or something like that, and you're gonna say, now I was already sending my kids to private school, I'm a happy camper, because now I just got a $10,400 rebate from the state on all y'all's tax dollars. So yeah, I'll be happy, right? But most of the kids and most of the families are never going to see that.
Okay, interesting thing though. I just want to share this. It's very interesting because last week was first week of school, and I took last week to go by. I went visiting Monty. I went by the Rock Church. I went by D.Z. Cofield's church. I went by Ralph West's church, and I just looked at their schools because I wanted to be able to see the children there. They're 99.9% Black. We got over at the Rock Church, they got 2 certified special ed teachers. And these are kids in the hood. These are kids in the hood, and they're getting a quality Christian education in a Christian environment. And to say you could just throw them out and then the money doesn't come. No, if the child leaves, the money follows the kid back. Yes, it does. Because you don't keep 10,500 because it's not even given out all at one time. It's also given out, just like you don't get the full allotment at your school. That's why they have average daily attendance, to make ADA, to make sure the kid is there, because the kid is not there, then that counts against the school in the public schools. So, because I also taught in the public schools. I taught in the public schools before I taught at community colleges and at universities. I taught at Fur High School and I taught at Wheatley High School. So I understand the public school, and I graduated from Fur High School. So I come out of HISD. And so the basic thing is, if we give the correct information to people, either side, it doesn't matter to me. I'm a 30-year educator, and you're right. It should be nonpartisan. It should be a situation where we're looking at, school to prison pipeline together.
Yes.
And trying to figure out how to close the school to prison pipeline, even if it means kids not going to school in that zip code, and their parents getting them out of that meat cleaver and putting them over here in the church where they ought to be, and getting on the right track in the church, where they're going to get more males in the church, more Christian males in the church. Now, in most of your public schools, you're lucky if you got one black man there. Most are female teachers. And then who's the largest group in the prison? Black males. So if you have deacons in the church, pastors in the church, and a school in the church, and men working with those boys in the church, that's the better lick to me all day long. And if you want to decrease, and we as black people have the biggest stake in this fight. Because if you sitting and watching black men go to prison, 12% represent the largest number, and white folks in Texas make up 40%, Hispanic 42%, and we got more in prison than they do. Black men ought to be fighting this fight on the front line and putting partisanship, Democrat, Republican aside, and looking at how we're gonna save young black men. And like I told y'all before, we don't work good outside of working with God. The church is the best way to do it. And I'm glad it's opened up now for resources to go in those churches to continue those schools in perpetuity, and I want more of them.
Let me say one thing on the issue. Prior to 1865, we all understand why black people were basically illiterate. Black people were illiterate prior to 1865. But they don't tell you over 70% of white people were illiterate prior to 1865. Public education didn't come into existence until after the Civil War, when this country realized that a substantial majority of the people could not afford private education. Public universities were created in the South. All right? There are very few, if you go back prior to 1865, there were very few public universities, even in the North. If you look at the North, the great universities in the North, Harvard, Yale, all those universities, they were all private. Public universities came about after the Civil War because we realized as a nation we were illiterate and most people couldn't afford a private education. Now, I don't know how we get out of this quandary that we're in, but if we want to educate the masses, we've got to come up with something better than what we have. All right? Public education wasn't working. I don't know whether vouchers are going to work. I don't know. But I do know that there are not enough people who can provide private education for their kids for us to educate the masses. And that was the whole intent after the Civil War. It was to educate everybody. And we've got to try to come up with a solution where everybody has an opportunity to be educated.
Get an efficient education, because those gaps of inefficiency is the core of the problem.
Right. No, I agree.
All right. Tanya?
Yes.
Early on in the show, we talked about Houston Treasures, Imagine and Reimagine. And we ended up with education, imagine, and reimagine. Because to your point, Richard, the law is already passed. So, Senator, Representative, I'm so sorry. I'm thinking it, making it real.
Reimagine.
Yeah, I'm making it to existence, right? Okay. Since it's done, and you're right, now we're living with it and stuff like that. So it's like creating my charge, I guess, as just as a citizen to you and to us, is to reimagine how working with what we have to make this something palatable for the children, because we're living with it, Richard. Like you said, And so rather than relitigate, which, and maybe that can happen later on, but for right now, Douglas, we're gonna have to figure out what to do and how to live with it. And I still think first goes back to educating folk to what the law even is, because I think they're operating in confusion. Some folks worrying about what's gonna happen to the sports teams.
Yeah.
Do they still pay with the school that's closest to them? You love football. And sports is a path to a lot of folks making a whole lot of money getting out the ghetto. For real. You know what I'm saying? So I like this conversation because, Tanya, this is real.
Yes, it is.
And so this is real. These kids are going to school, and some are going to private school for the first time. You got churches that are creating schools, and I think both of y'all have a point.
Yeah.
But how do we go forward? Where's our responsibility, and what should we be doing? And since I pay taxes in a few places, I'd like to know how I can be effective, and because my taxes, I ought to be able to say something about where my taxes go. So if that means in a vote or in pushing at our legislators to come back to the table, and I would think on both sides, Republican and Democrat, with respect to that, because it's a lot of
Yeah, but the problem is real, though.
It is real.
The problem, I think of my own daughter. All right, she started at Bel Air, but I took her to Yates first. I took her to Yates. The people who were in leadership at Yates said, "Dean, please don't bring over here."
Why they say that?
Because they knew that their program was weak. Yates was terribly underfunded at that time. I don't know whether they still underfunded, but Yates was underfunded.
It sounds like we need to advocate. See, when I was doing furniture and I did the library thing, I went to the one it's in Third Ward. I did it on my own dime, and I went to Yates, and I went to not Bella Lamar, and I went to Persian, and I did surveys, and I asked them what they all wanted, and they said for the kids to stay longer in the libraries because they don't read, they don't, and I'm on the furniture side, so it was how do we make it more appealing? Now, when I got to Persian and no Lamar, the parents bought tea and coffee and things, so they had like a little Starbucks for the kids. The school didn't pay for it, but the parents got involved. And so the kids had a different reason, but they hung out more in the library, right?
Yeah,
and
but
so
they
Yates looked like a prison up in there.
They had the money to do it, though.
Huh?
They had the money to do it.
They had the money to do it. That's true. But now the parents did it as opposed to, and I'm talking to the lady at Yates, and this is real. It was, like, who wants to be here? I mean, it was,
and
that's real.
When Cashmere got in trouble, we went over to Cashmere. You know how many books they had in the library? Zero.
Well, you and I ran into each other over at, what was it, in Sunnyside? Right over here at Cullen.
Right.
And it was, I think it was this school across the street. When Jolanda Jones said, our libraries can't be used for storage rooms. And y'all got like through the Christmas holidays to get some library furniture in here and turn these back into some libraries. And we were fortunate enough to be awarded that contract. And it wasn't the finest in the world, but they were turned back into libraries, and we got to cut the ribbon with you, Douglas. With I don't know if it's in NAACP or what position you were in, but it just means somebody cared enough to do it. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, that we as a community have to care. And you pay your taxes, and you have these schools, even the schools that are here, you can push at the people that are running the schools, who can push at the people who fund the schools to make sure that at least the kids should have a library where they want to come and sit at with some furniture, so the kid will want to hang out as opposed to not. When I'm be honest, my daughter was teaching at over here, and we were doing this story about. She said, "Well, I'll shoot it in the library because the kids don't know it's the library." That's the true statement.
Wow.
Because they weren't using it for a library. It was storage. Everything was in there, but they don't go in. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Dallas ISD, we did 27 libraries the last couple of years, and they have 4 segments to them. One of them is for study, and one of them is they have either like we have a podcast. They teach them the podcast, or you'll have where they're teaching them the robotics and things like that. They have 4. They invest in that, but that's with school money. So they're being about that, and that wasn't private money. That was school money. So I'm just saying there's some things, but I think the urging and the parenting and the the parenting, teaching our parents, or whatever, partnering with our parents, partnering with the schools.
Right.
It's folk, and we can do better, y'all.
Right. And I just know that we definitely need to make sure that the playing field is leveled. And that's why I asked the question.
Right.
Because if the playing field is not level, then we can never ensure the quality education for all children. And Karen, you've been sitting over here quietly. How can we talk about educating and getting the word out? What can a media source like the Forward Times do to help us? Because we're talking about Georgia Provost and the Houston Treasures. They talked about always these issues. They were in front of, the issues. And it was not always pretty conversations,
Right.
but you had to go back and forth to get to where you needed to be. So how can the media source help us?
The biggest complaint we got during this passing of the vouchers was that they weren't informed. They didn't understand. Got a lot of grandparents that are raising kids. They just didn't get the information. And so that was the biggest thing that matter of fact, we just did a back to school edition where we interviewed the lady that's over the vouchers and stuff, and she gave some information, but it was a little too late. The things had been done, but we didn't get the information to get out to the community. So when you guys have everything, we are open to run this stuff, but we just didn't get the information.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We want to thank all of our guests who have been a part of the show today. Dr. Douglas, Miss Karen, Mr. Richard, Miss Arnetta, Rep Reynolds. We want to thank you all. You all have been so gracious. We have gone overtime, and Chef Eddie is ready because he has some things already prepared for us. So I'm sorry that you all out there in the virtual world are going to miss out on the best, one of the best parts of the show, and that's when we get to enjoy some of Chef Eddie's delights over there. Chef Eddie, talk to us.
Yeah, you go. I'm a challenge though. As I hand this to him, I think we have a committee. I don't know. I heard inform, not inform. Arnetta, I heard Karen say she's open to a forum or putting some things in the paper. We got a volunteer. We got a volunteer. We got Richard over there who's saying we need to go in a direction. I'm thinking that we have the group of folk that can do like an information rally. I don't know what you call it. What y'all think? I'm serious.
One of the things, let me just share it with you. And I gotta be candid about it. I don't have any time. I don't want to use my time to relitigate the policy.
Right, exactly.
I'm using all of my time to work with pastors, work with not just in Houston, but across the state, work with pastors, those who want to open their schools, and those who have Christian schools want to enhance their Christian schools. Those are the kinds of things that I'm working on. And it's taken like a lot of my time to do that. I don't want to go arguing back and forth about the bill that's already now law. I want to educate my people on what the current law is,
Right.
how they can engage if they choose to engage, because they're free to do that.
No, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
the law
I
is
don't-
done. So tonight we had a conversation. We heard why Ron felt like he did, but it's won. It's done. So what we're talking about is just informing people as to how to use it. That's what I'm talking about. Because there's no going back and forth anymore. We're done. But we can inform the public as to how to.
I think that's a good idea.
It took 13 years from my counting, and probably more than that, to get to this point. So it's not going to take a second to get beyond it in either direction, but it is here as we stated, and we need to learn how to make sure that every child and every family wins with it.
Right.
And that's going to take a coming together of minds to inform persons and to see. You can always go back, because I know the school districts always go back and talk about making a different change. Look, we getting ready to change the standardized testing again. So STAR is going to be out, and then there'll be something else. So, we have that opportunity to do that because we're brilliant. God made us brilliant like that. So I would hope that the doors remain open, so that, because where there's an open door, there are greater possibilities that await us, I believe.
Absolutely.
And so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the chef, who has some greater possibilities for dinner tonight.
What time it is? Tonight is a very interesting night. I got inspired by a couple different dishes. Some of them are revised, but this is the one time that I was able to get multiple of them together, seasoned available. So if there was ever a time to tip the chef and show your appreciation, this is it.
Yay!
So we've got some Amsi wine on the table, some cab for those who partake. And then so we've got, starting off, we've got some basmati rice with lemon and zest of lemongrass in it. And we've got black eyed peas, my famous black eyed peas. Killer kale came out really well this time. And so did the sauteed zucchini, a little bit of garlic and ginger on that as well, cooked in olive oil. And then we have lamb. We have some ground lamb, and we have some sauteed sockeye salmon, and we have some turkey sliders, I call them, some turkey burgers. And then we've got some sauteed mushrooms. So a little bit of everything. And for you, Brother Douglas, I have a arugula salad with a little bit of tuna, if you can't deal with the kale. So it's ought to be amazing. So come on and get it while it's warm and fresh, freshly prepared for you guys. And here we go. Yeah.
He made this, guys. This is for y'all.
Y'all give it up.
This is for y'all.
Give it up for the chef.
And we're proud of Chef Eddie.
Yeah.
And if you see anything behind you over there, Kay's closet is there. But Chef Eddie's just secured he's doing what is it, third boy tours, what have you. He's doing the lunch. They hired him. They came through the other day and liked his meal. He's got a wedding where he's, there's 200 folk at the ensemble. He's picking, they're starting to roll out, and we're excited about it. So y'all encourage him.
Yes.
Thank you.
And before we leave the show tonight, we definitely want to give it up for our Houston treasures and have a moment of silence in memory of the Queen, Mrs. Georgia Provost. Amen.
Amen. Thank y'all. Wrap.
Wrap.